one hand and the other hand higher up towards the ceiling. Get a little bit longer. And you feel the sides inching up to the ceiling. And then circle the arms down and back. Release your fingers behind you and then pull the knuckles away from the body as well as down. Feel the chest open up. Maybe you feel a stretch through the arms and the elbows. Can you breathe into your front body? And then reach the arms up. Let your torso come down towards your thighs. Maybe the arms point up even more and your head goes down to the floor. You can lift your hips off your heels as much as you're comfortable to do. And then inhale, sitting back up. Reach the arms to the ceiling. Cactus the arms, elbows wide, chest up. Maybe the elbows feel like they're coming together behind you. And now interlace the fingers in front of you. Flip so that the palms are open. And then tuck your tail and round and hollow through the chest. So now your mid-back, upper back is widening. Good. Inhale, lift the arms. Separate the fingers, cactus the arms. Interlace the hands in front, flip the palms, tuck your tail. Make it feel a little bit like cat-cow, but from seated. Good. Inhale, arms up. Good. Cactus. Interlace. And then flip the hands, palms facing forward, tuck your tail, hollow out through the front body. Okay, release the fingers. Place the hands on the mat about a shoulder's width apart, and then walk your knees back so you're in tabletop. Shift side to side through the arms, so the arms stay straight. You're just pushing pressure into one hand then the other. Good, and now go forward and back. And just pay attention to the weight at your wrists. And when you go forward, really make sure you're pressing into the fingertips so you're not feeling too much through the heel of the hand. And you're not really moving your spine, you're just keeping it neutral, shifting forward and back. And now I'm gonna go even more as I walk my knees back a touch so that when I come to the forward position, I'm more in a kneeling plank. And then when I go back, it's almost like a child's pose. So I'm just increasing that range of forward and back. Okay, so the next time I come forward, I'm gonna go forward, bend the elbows, and then come all the way down onto the chest. From the chest, untuck the toes, so now you're right on the floor. Inhale for baby cobra. Cactus the arms. And when you cactus, can you lift the finger edge higher than the elbow edge? Good. Place the hands down beside your ribs. And inhale, coming to a taller cobra. And if you're not ready for a full straight arm cobra, your hands can be more forward. Lay the belly back down on the floor. Good. Again, inhale, baby cobra. Cactus the arms. And try to bring the finger edge higher than the elbow edge. Maybe still squeezing the elbow tips together and behind you. And hands beside the ribs again. And again, taller cobra. Hands can be any distance in front of you, making this work for how you feel through the low back. Try to feel like you're relaxing through the front abdominals, lengthening back and stretching through the toes. And then press into the hands and send your hips back. Child's pose. Round it forward, come to table and tuck your toes. Back to downward facing and pedal the feet Stretching out through the hamstrings. You can turn the hips as you pedal to get more length through the side body. Walk your feet forward. Let's say about hip width apart and behind your hands. Inhale, lift your chest halfway up. Exhale to fold, let your head go down. Can you fold it a little tighter? So maybe you hold onto the sides of your ankles or the sides of your legs. You give it a little pull. Head's heavy, chest coming to the thighs. Inhale, lift the chest, and fingertips are either on the floor or maybe on yoga blocks. And then bend your knees and go into a squat. It might not be your deepest squat, and that's fine. We're going to lift the hips back up. So you're coming to that forward fold. And through this little motion, think about your rib cage staying really close to your thighs. So if that means you don't straighten your legs, it's totally fine. But almost like when you lift the hips, the rib cage and the thighs stay together. Okay, bend the knees. And we'll do it one more time. And then come into squat. Hands towards the chest. Lift your chest up. Pull your tail slightly back. And we'll press into the feet to stand. Arms can reach up overhead. If you'd like, take a little back bend. And then forward fold all the way back down to the mat. Inhale, reach the chest forward. And hands to the mat, shoulder width apart. Step back, downward facing dog. From downward dog, we'll lift the right leg up. So right leg, three-leg dog. If you can, square hips, straight leg. And step your right foot towards your right hand. Pivot to the left, so you're going to the long edge of your mat. So you're in a wide leg, forward fold. Walk your hands a little to the left and bend your left knee. Keep your toes pointing to the long edge of the mat. So I'm not turning on the feet. Your right leg is straight, your left knee is bent. Your chest is reaching forward and your tail is reaching back. Good. Walking your hands over to the right, bend your right knee, and straighten your left leg. So hopefully you feel a little bit of length here through the inner leg. Keep trying to lengthen the spine, so if it's possible, you're still with a flat back. Come back to the middle. That's it. Fold in half. Hand position can be whatever works for you. Inhale, lift the chest. Walk your hands to the left foot, but try not to turn the toes. So it's really working more of a side bend. And your hands don't have to meet your left foot. You might just be going a little bit in that direction. If you have a more advanced practice or you want a deeper stretch, pull your right hip back. So you're resisting this arc to the side. And then as you come back in the middle, walk your hands over to the right foot. Pull your outer left hip back. You might notice if it's different one side to the other. And then pivot all the way to face the front of your mat. Your right foot is forward and your left leg is back. Just make sure you still have a hip width when you pivot. And then come up, high lunge. And in high lunge, just make sure your shoulders are stacked above your hips. Your back knee can be bent if that's what you need. Bend your elbows in cactus, puppy chest. Bring your hands together in front of the heart. Interlace your fingers and round your upper back. Inhale, arms up. Exhale to cactus. Hands to heart. Flip the palms out and push. One more time, hands up. Cactus. Hands together. And then push it out. Releasing the hands to the floor, we'll step back down dog. Option to add in a flow here. If you need the rest or you just want to take a child's pose, go ahead, come onto your knees. Otherwise, shifting forward to plank, lower halfway or all the way. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Take a few breaths. Resting in any shape that you need to rest. I'm going to repeat the sequence for the other leg, the other side. Left leg high. Left foot steps. Pivot to the right. Inhale, lengthen. Bend your right knee, keeping your left leg straight. All toes pointing to the long edge of your mat. And then switch sides. Maybe you can sit into this a little bit more. Maybe you can lengthen your spine just a little bit more. Come back into center. Pause. And forward fold through the center. Now, as you fold, you might change your arm position than the last time, right? Maybe you hold your ankles, maybe you interlace your hands behind you. Maybe you just let your hands rest on the mat. So option to change the arm position. Try something else. As you release the hands from wherever they happen to be, walk your hands over to your right foot. Trying not to turn your feet. Put your outer left hip back in space. Maybe your hands walk more towards that end of the mat than they did the first time through. And now add on option for those who want to bend your left knee but change nothing else. So as you bend your left knee, your arms are still reaching to the back of your mat. And then go ahead and straighten your left leg if you did happen to bend it. Walk your hands across that edge of your mat towards the front. First, both legs stay straight. Outer right hip pulls back. You're just finding that side stretch through the right with these wide legs. And then option to add on bending the right knee, keeping the arms reaching to the front of the mat. All right, pivot to face the mat, the front of the mat. Check in with your feet. You want to make sure you have a hips width apart, not on a tight rope. And come on up, high lunge. Cactus the arms in your high lunge. Puffing out the chest. Hands towards the heart. Interlace the fingers. Flip the palms forward. As you slightly tuck your tail and hollow the chest, maybe you notice the intensity at the front of your right hip. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, cactus. Inhale, hands together. Exhale, flip it open. Hands can come back up. Cactus. Hands together. And we flip it open. Then we're releasing the hands towards the floor. Stepping back to downward dog, deciding here if you need the rest, if you want to take an alternative shape, or adding a flow. So plank, upward facing, and downward facing. Right leg reaches high. Big step to the right hand. Bending the left knee to the mat. Inhale, arms up. Twist to your right, arms wide. Maybe adding the lift of the left arm, the reach down of the right arm. See if you can bring your left hand to your right knee and then reach the right arm back even more. Turn the left hand to face forward. And then slide that hand down towards the foot. Any amount, it might not go that far. Reach the right arm up. See if you can widen this shape. And maybe your left hand is on a block. Try to find your breath. So it definitely feels a little bit harder to breathe, a little bit more restricted when you twist, especially deeper. See if you can find that. And then as you bring your right hand towards your left hand, any amount, start to lift your left knee off the floor and just twist yourself any amount to the right. So maybe the hands just stay to the outside of the right foot. Maybe you come to the outer edges of both feet and walk your hands towards the middle of the mat. So now you're in a wide leg fold, but legs are completely twisted. Legs are X'd or crossed up at the inner thigh. So again, not necessarily available to everyone. Just do your best. I have to be on the outer edges of both feet to do this. So you certainly are going to have a harder time if you're keeping your feet flat on the mat. And just breathe with it. Okay, we're going to bring the knees to the floor. So you may have to completely rearrange, bend both knees, and then your feet are going to be wide and your knees are going to be stacking. So right here, I have right knee over left knee. You're coming to cow face pose, facing the long edge of your mat. And then go ahead and try to take a seat. Now, again, it's not going to work for everyone. Some of us are going to have to sit on the left foot, right? Because you can't take the feet so wide. Some of us might be hips up and just hands on the floor, more like a child's pose with your bum up, right? Because sitting is just not going to happen. If you can sit, try to sit down between the feet. And if you can, look at your feet and make them more symmetrical. They won't be perfect, obviously, because you'll be having one hip in front of the other, but do your best to kind of have them at similar height. Okay, as you sit, try to be tall. And for some of us, again, this is enough. You're going to feel that through the outer hips. If you want to add a little bit of a fold or a hinge, maybe you walk your hands just a tiny bit forward. You can give that a go. Back of the neck is long. See if you can relax here. Okay, so wherever you are, if you're in that forward position with your bum up, that's okay. Just crawl over to the front of your mat. If you're more in an upright position, take your hands over towards the front of your mat. Press into the outer edges of your feet and unwind yourself, stepping it back to downward dog. In downward dog, you might add a flow, you might skip. Plank, low, upward, and downward. Okay, and then we're going to be doing the other side. So again, take your time. Definitely modify everything that you need to modify. If it means that it's not quite working with the foot position, you kind of have to shuffle around or completely come out and then reset it. Perfect, right? Make it work for you. Left leg high, left foot steps, right knee down. Inhale up, twist to your left, arms wide. Maybe adding the back bend or the reach with the right arm, left arm going down. I really think about reaching more through the right arm than I am reaching down, so I feel the front of my right hip. I'm going to come back to the neutral position with the arms wide, and then place the right hand on the outside of the left knee. Left arm is back. You can stay here, more upright, still twisting, but more space, especially if you don't want to compress through the front of the body. You might flip the right hand palm out. If you have the right hand palm out and you want to try the intensity, you might start to slide that right arm down the outside of your left leg, any amount. Hand could be on a block, right? Hand could be closer to the knee than the ankle. And the deeper you go, right, the closer you get to the floor, the higher you try to reach the left arm. And if you use the shoulders opening for leverage, right, against the bent knee, you start to feel this position where you're able to twist a little bit deeper. As you look back down towards the floor, bring your left hand a little bit towards the right hand. Tuck your left toes under, and then spin to the outer edges of your feet so that your hands are coming closer and closer as much as you can towards the middle of the long edge of your mat. Here on the outer edges of the feet, my left leg is crossed over my right leg, and the X of the cross is right up at the inner thigh. And some of us are going to be more bent in one leg than having both legs straight, right? It might be like some of us have the hands closer to the top foot, the left foot, than down halfway to the mat. So just do what you can. Your intention is to find some stretch through the outer hips. So even if your shape doesn't look like mine or your neighbor, but you feel it, then that's fine. Right? If you can, you'll even lengthen your spine. Okay, so we're gonna come down to the mat. So here on the X of the legs, all I do is bend my knees and bring them towards the floor, right? I really want the left knee right in front of the right knee. And then I come to sit and my feet are wide. Now again, feel free to adjust it as you need. Maybe your right leg is straight out in front of you. Maybe you're sitting on that foot, right? So that foot's pointing back and then the left foot's pointing out. So do what you can. Eventually, you're looking for more symmetry and left to right. From here, I might just work on sitting tall and just concentrating on what I feel through the outer hips. If I feel like I'd like more intensity, I might start to lean into it. So certainly an intense pose. If you find that you're feeling anything sharp or anything questionable in your knee, ankle, or hip, then definitely start to move out of it, up or out of your depth a little bit. But if it just feels sort of like a slow burn or it's like a bit awkward, that's normal. Okay, so we're gonna take the hands towards the front of the mat and you're gonna come out and meet in downward dog. So if you're needing to kind of step out of this or lean back and release the legs and then move to downward dog, that's fine. Otherwise, hands come to the front of the mat, stepping into the outer edges of the feet. Just unwind the legs and take it back, downward facing dog. If you want to take a child's pose for a moment, you can. Otherwise, plank, low plank, upward facing, and downward facing. Hips are probably feeling pretty warm. And then we'll just walk it forward towards the hands. You can also be stepping or jumping if that's a part of the practice. I like to have my feet about a hip width when I get there towards the hands. Inhale, lift the chest, and on the exhale, forward fold. Press into the feet. Inhale, reach up to the ceiling. Add a back bend if you feel it. Skip that if you don't. And then hands back to the floor. Inhale, reach the chest forward, and hands to the mat. Let's go to downward facing dog. Right leg high. Big step to the right hand. Turn to the left, so you're facing the long edge of the mat. And then have your toes turn out slightly. Okay? So the heels are a little bit narrower than the toes. And then bend the knees wide so that you're coming into a bit of a sumo squat or a wide squat. You can keep your hands on the floor and just walk them forward as you try to sit your bum back. And think about downward dog for the arms. Might feel intense through the hips. If you want more challenge, maybe you bend your knees more, maybe you sit back more. And then go ahead and straighten your legs. Keep your feet in the turnout. You can come onto fingertips for a little more height or even blocks if you need. Take a moment, take a breath. And then bend the knees again. So maybe you can bend the knees enough to get your seat almost to the height of the knees. And then walk your hands one at a time towards the thighs or the knees. Straighten your arms to lengthen your spine, and you're kind of leaning forward. Lots of weight in my arms. So I'm not engaging my core so much or my back. I'm really just leaning into the legs, even locking out the arms. So if there's a bit of a shrug happening, that's okay. Sitting into the hips, just finding this lift, and then maybe starting to engage through the glutes and the hips. If I start to feel a little lighter through the hands, that's good. If I feel light enough through the hands to bring the hands to the chest, I'll hold there. You want your chest a little bit lifted, so you don't want to be leaning so far forward that you're in a fold. You want to think of it more as a squat. And then check in with your feet. Make sure your knees are pointing in the same direction as the toes. Inner arches of the feet are active. Go ahead and stand. Straightening the leg, taking a bit of a rest. Big breath in. And long breath out. Again, big breath in. And long breath out. Turn your left toe slightly in, so your left heel is a little bit further away. Pivot on the right foot so the right toes are pointing forward. Warrior two, arms wide. Notice the difference in sensation through the body. Maybe the different effort. Asymmetrical legs here. And then reach forward through the right arm. Bring the right hand either towards the inner ankle or inner leg or elbow to knee, left hand up. Try to bend your right knee enough that you create a straight line through the left side of your body. I like to lean the shoulders back so that the back of my shoulders and the back of the hips are on the same plane. On an inhale, come all the way back up, straight legs. Good, parallel the feet. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, hinge. Left fingertips to the floor, directly underneath the face, right? So you don't want your hands close to the feet. You want them a bit forward so you still have room for the spine. And then start to twist your body towards the front of your mat, right hand up. And if you don't like the arms wide or it bothers your shoulder, you can certainly bring the right hand to your low back. More intense, more advanced, perhaps outer left hip. Draw it back. And then looking at your right foot, pivot to the front of your mat, hands to the floor, step back downward facing. Add a flow here if you'd like. Skip that part if you don't. And do the same little sequence for the other side for the left leg. You take your left leg high in the air. And big step forward to the left hand. Turn to the long edge of your mat. And turn the feet out. Just checking in that your heels are slightly narrower than the toes and then the knees. Walk the hands more forward, sit the bum back. And if you can, see if you can go a little bit deeper than you did the first time. Maybe you feel that rotation through the hip joint. And your gaze is just towards the floor between your hands, or maybe even slightly behind your wrist. Walk your hands closer towards you. Bring your hands towards your thighs, above your knee. Push the arms straight so you're completely leaning into the arms. You're not really engaging your core or your back to hold you because your arms are supporting you. Make sure you're still sinking into the seat. And if you're tired, you can certainly stay with the weight in the arms. If you want to work a little bit more effort, you might engage through the hips, the back, the core, and feel a little lighter in the hands, even if you're keeping the hands on the legs. And if you feel strong enough to bring your hands towards your chest, lift your chest a little bit, sit deep in this goddess pose, horse stance. Challenge yourself through the hold. As you press through your feet to stand, feel the relief in your legs, turning your left toes to the front of your mat and your right heel slightly back. Bend your front knee. You're looking for warrior two. And if your stance is short, go ahead and lengthen it. Arms are wide. So goddess horse stance. It's a strong pose, right? So is warrior two. So you might feel a similar amount of intensity, but in a different way. Trust in your legs. And then as you lengthen towards your left leg, either elbow to knee or hand towards the floor or a block, right arm up, side angle pose. You're looking up towards your right arm. You're leaning your shoulders back. And then come on up, stand. Parallel your feet, so you're coming right back to the long edge of your mat. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, hinge. I'm putting my right fingertips towards the floor, underneath my face. Left hand up. Maybe for more intensity, you think of the front right hip and lifting that corner, pulling it back. You're already looking towards the front of your mat. Walk your hands in that direction, pivot on the feet, step it back, down dog. Choose your rest if you need. Plank, low plank, upward facing, downward facing. Just allow yourself a few breaths here. Walk your feet forward towards your hands. You can also step or jump. I like hip width apart. Inhale, lift your chest about halfway. And exhale, let it go. Inhale, stand up. Big stretch up to the ceiling. And exhale, hands to heart. Okay, so let's just work a little bit on balance and take a moment here. Legs are maybe a bit tired. If you need to roll out your ankles, rotate out your knees, find a new spot on the mat, or even just shake it out. Allow your body to get what it needs. I'm going to keep my feet hip width apart. Reach my right arm up and over my ear. Just a gentle side bend. And then do the other side. And then come back up. We're going to go again, adding on. If you don't want to add on, then just stay here with the side bend. Lean the weight into your left leg. So maybe you can even bend your right knee just to test that you do have the weight in your left leg. Start to bend your knee a little bit and take your right leg to the back left corner. As you do, think of stepping into that right heel. So that's going to increase this bend through the left knee. And then you can imagine the sling from the fingertip all the way down the hip towards the back toe. And then just come right back up. Take a moment. Shift it around. Okay. We'll do the same on the other side. Just a side bend to start. And then your side bend. Keep the weight in your opposite leg. So I have left arm up, so it's right leg. That's going to keep the balance, keep the support. To test, I'll just bend my left knee. Yeah, I want to be able to actually step it. So you want to make sure that the right leg is strong. And then as I bend my right knee a little bit to step the left leg to the back right corner, it's going to bend my right knee forward even more. And the more you bend into that knee, you can test it. The more you bend into it, the deeper the arc that you're creating. Right? And if you want, you can reach the right arm in the opposite direction. Take it anywhere that feels good to you. You might even take your right hand and pull that left arm over. Okay, and we'll come right back to stand into balance. Take your hands to your heart. Big breath in. And a full breath out. Big breath in. Full breath out. So we've been working a lot on these outer hips. Holding us in the goddess stance, holding us in these wider positions through the legs. Also, they're stretching through the outer lines of the hips, right? So you want to strengthen and stretch. So we're going to try a little balance challenge, even standing challenge. You might want to have blocks near you, right? Because you might not want to go all the way down. Using a piece of furniture like your sofa or chair even to hold onto, even a wall can be helpful, okay? So if you remember, we were in that crossed leg position at one point with the legs really wide. So we're going to go again to cross the legs, but maybe not as wide. And as you do, right, crossing at the legs, see if you can lift the big toe edge of your feet. Lift it and put it down. Lift it and put it down. Okay? And even if the big toe edge doesn't lift a lot, focus on that press through the outer edges of the feet. Okay? So the pinky edge, pinky blade of the foot is pressing. And as you do that, it creates a bit of space to bend the knees and go into maybe halfway. Just halfway is fine, if you can do halfway. And then go ahead and stand up. So you can imagine your legs are a little bit like scissors, right? The squeeze of the inner thigh brings you up, okay? And with that test, you might have discovered, I need my right leg to be a bit more forward, my left leg to be a little bit more back. I need them to be wider, I need them to be narrower. That's gonna depend again on the proportion of your hips, the size of your thighs. Yeah, like there's a lot of factors of your body that kind of need to work out for that perfect positioning. So go ahead and shift it if you need to. Roll up onto the outer edges of your feet and try it again. Just bend your knees. You can think of it almost like a curtsy, and you're opening the knees. It means you come up higher on that edge of the foot and just go down as low as you feel you can. And I'm reaching my arms forward to counterbalance. And you might have your hand on a sofa or a chair or blocks to keep you a little bit higher. And if you want, you can come right down to sit. And then you'll notice you're kind of in a cross-legged seated position. Take a moment, you can rest at the bottom. If you're at the bottom, if you're not coming to the bottom, that's okay. We're gonna go back up. So to go back up, you wanna do the same thing but in reverse. You're gonna need a good lean forward to counterbalance the weight in the back. And again, I'm pressing on the outer edges of the feet. I want to squeeze my inner thighs to get that initial lift off the floor. And you could hold it there. Or start to press, press, press into the outer edges of the feet, squeezing your inner thighs to come all the way up. Okay? Uncross the legs. Step it out, take a rest, shift it side to side. So the action of holding at the bottom is going to be very challenging. The depth is going to be very challenging. So you don't have to go right to the places where you feel like I can't get out if I go down. Just challenge yourself to go to a place where you feel that you've got enough challenge that you can come back out. Now look down at your feet, cross the other way. Okay, I'm going to do left over right. We'll first do halfway just to calibrate so we have an opportunity to change the position of the feet to better suit our frame. And then we'll try the whole way up and whole way down after, okay? So again, arms can come forward to help you counterbalance. Start to bend the knees, feeling really the outer edges of the feet dig into the ground. Go maybe like halfway. You might pause at halfway, and that might be your max. This might be a really good challenge already. Come right back up. Kind of look at your feet. Decide if you want to change the position or if maybe there's a better way. And then the second time, your pace all the way down and all the way up. Okay, arms out. And as you feel more confident, you'll be able to go slower. You'll be able to stop at any level on the way down or up. You might float for a little while. You might even sit. Then you're going to make your way back up. And if you need to use a bit of momentum to get yourself up, that's okay. Eventually you'll work on that. And then when you make your way all the way up, take a moment and uncross. Step it out. So like I said, it's very different depending on your body. So even if you're just doing part, but you feel a good amount of work and a lot of strength through your ankle, knee, and hip joints, that's perfect. That's great. We're going to inhale, reach from the top of the mat. Exhale, fold hands to the floor. Inhale, lengthen, heart forward. Hands to the mat. I'm going to take a flow. If you don't want to add a flow, just take a rest or find yourself in down dog. Long breath in, long breath out. I'm going to step my right foot forward so I can turn to the long edge of the mat. Now, I just want you to be on one long edge of the mat where you still can face me, right? So you might have to flip it around if your camera's in the other direction. You can fold your mat in half lengthways to have more padding under the knees. We're going to be working on frog pose. If you have, maybe you have carpet underneath your mat already, you don't need to fold it, that's fine. You put your hands down and then ease yourself onto the mat so that the inner knee is against your surface, against your doubled mat or your floor that's soft enough for your leg. I'm going to turn to the side because what I think is important here is the spine, but for the front view, you want your knees as wide as you can manage. Okay, so as I come into this, you'll also notice that my feet are behind my knee. I don't have my feet together, I have my feet wide, yeah? And as I come down onto my elbow, I might be in a better position to widen my knees even more. So you want to go as wide as possible for your body. My knees are at the same width or height, I guess you could say, as my hip. And there's going to be a big tendency for me to sink through the low back and stick my butt out, right? Instead, I want to keep a neutral or even slightly tucked tail to really ensure that the hip opening work, this rotation through the hip joint, is more at that hip site rather than any kind of pressure through the low back. Your gaze could just stay towards your hands, right? So you're not having to look up or under. And if you're in the middle position where your hip is at knee height, or knee, I should say, is at hip height, you could stay there. Or if you want a bit of challenge, see if you could slide your bum back to the end of your mat. And for me, it's like a 1, maybe 2-inch movement. It's not big. It has huge sensation in my body. I feel a lot more through my inner thighs, through the inner edge of the hip joint. If I were to imagine what I was in action to sort of illustrate that, I think about sitting on the floor back between my heels. Totally not going to happen, but just the idea of the direction in which I'm moving. And then very slowly, I'm going to ease forward. You can even walk your elbows more forward, thinking of reaching your chest towards the top end of your mat. Or sorry, I should say, if you're facing the long edge of the mat, drawing your chest more forward as much as possible. And when you do, again, avoid that belly down sinking. Right here, I'm exaggerating, but I'm totally pressing my belly to the floor. And I don't feel anything through the hips, right? Because I'm just allowing my low back to take that bend. So instead, if I kind of draw up and in through the navel, feeling like the top edge of my hip bone is lifting up towards my rib, it gets much more intense, and my inner thighs are not touching the floor. Okay? So, again, it's our own responsibility to find our own edge and to keep ourselves true to finding that edge. I find that the forward pull is less intense than the hips back, the sitting back, but everyone's different. Now we're going to go back again. And so I want you to feel like you can alternate through the back position and the front position or the forward position. And as much as this is a hip opener, it is not at all about relaxing. It's not meant to be painful either, though, so just keep that in mind. Intensity is good, pain is not. It should feel like you're still working, right? You're still very present with your pose. And then bring yourself forward, mindful of the position of your pelvis. When I'm in this forward position, it's almost like I'm digging my elbows into the ground and almost like drawing my chest forward. So there's a pulling action. And I find that when I work on moving back, on that back section, the moving forward part gets much easier. Time to go back again. If you're finding that going back is just really a lot and you can't hold it quite as long, that's okay. Just try to go there. You can come out sooner than me, right? Just go back, try it, and then you go forward, taking that break. And then you go back again just to try it, maybe hold a second longer. So it's about progressing at your pace as well. Forward one more time. And if you think about even drawing the inner thighs together, again, an impossible action here with the floor, but it creates this resistance that you will notice. And then I'm going to come back to more of that neutral position where my hip and my knee are more aligned. Come into my hands and then just use my foot to sort of push to get myself back towards a closed kneed child's pose. So I'm just bringing my knees right together and just sitting back. If it feels good to rock a bit side to side, you can do that. Breathe. Okay, and then we'll sit and lie down. So as I go back, I'm going to set my hips. Sorry, I'm going to set my heels close to my hips. You might be able to touch your heels, you might not. A little bit forward of being able to touch is perfect. Stepping into your feet, you're looking for bridge pose. So that's knees forward, hips up. I like to press into the floor with the back of my arms, my triceps, right? And then also because I'm really working into the legs here, I'm not flaring my ribs. Breathe into the front of your hips. If you happen to have blocks with you, you can certainly put blocks underneath your hips. It's actually a really nice way to open the front of the hips. Let's bring the hips back down to the ground. For this next alternative, if you'd like. So your choices here are to come into bridge again, where both feet stay on the floor. You could have the blocks stacked under your hips, and then with that support, you can straighten your leg so that the leg will be in a more straight position, but you'll have the elevation of the block to open up the front of the hip. I'm going to show you a version where if you don't have a block, you're using your arms underneath you. Again, not everybody's body is going to be necessarily able to get your arms under in a comfortable way. So it's, you can experiment and see. You could also do one leg in bridge, the other leg more straight. And again, you might not be able to hold as long, but again, you're pushing into your right leg here, left leg more straight, just so that you can see that this front leg is getting the full length through that left side. Okay, so I'm going to go bridge, show you the arm alternative. You can do it with me. If you have blocks, it's the easier way. Just stack 2 blocks layered like a cake underneath your hips, and then you'll just be in the bridge position with the support and both legs coming down. Yeah? Okay. So if you're no blocks and you're working with me, you're going to step into your feet to lift your hips up to bridge. Once you're in bridge, you're going to do your best to rock from one shoulder, slide the elbow underneath you, both sides. So you can go left to right a bunch of times to get the hands to support the hips underneath the pelvis. Now, when I'm in this shape, my thumbs are with my fingers. That's important. So all of the fingers are wrapping around the sides of the body, and the elbows are tucked in tight enough that they're underneath. Now, with the feet staying on the floor, you'll be able to be in this position without too much pressure through the wrist, because again, your legs are supporting. If you are using your arms, just try one leg straight. Let's see how that feels. If it's okay and you're feeling fairly stable, you can try both legs. Okay, so I'm just going really slow because, like I said, not everybody is going to be comfortable using their arms underneath them for support. I don't feel any pain in my wrists or my elbows. I do have a stack there. I'm getting the benefit of quite a deep chest opener by having my arms in this back position. It's kind of like cactus through the chest. Of course, if you have blocks, you don't have to worry about any of that. You get the benefit of the hip opening already. Try to relax the front body. I know it can be challenging. In some ways, it might feel like a cobra but flipped around. And if you're in this position but you need to take a break or you need to come out because it is intense for some of us, if you've never done it before, it might be too much. You're coming out when you need to come out, of course. So let's bring, if you're not on blocks, left foot in, right foot in. Press into your feet. Make sure you're supported. Slide the hands out. You're now in a regular bridge. And then you can ease yourself down. If you are on top of blocks, you can stay, as long as your hips feel comfortable in that shape. If you have blocks, you can release if you'd like. So just putting your feet back to bridge, pushing the blocks out to one side underneath you. And for a moment, I'm just going to rest here with the feet on the floor. It allows my low back to be in a more relaxed, neutral position without any strain. If there's something else that you feel like you'd like to do, like a twist or a happy baby, or even if inversions are part of practice and that's something you really wanted to do today, by all means, take your time to add in whatever poses you'd like. Otherwise, if you're feeling comfortable, to stretch your legs out now. Have your hands split palms up for your final Shavasana. Go ahead and relax into your final pose. If you know that lying on your back is just not where you need to be today, you prefer to be in a seated position, take a seat. Take a seated meditation for a few moments. And we'll just rest, allowing the body to settle in, to come back to its normal resting state, and hopefully allow you to find some calm, right, after a vigorous practice. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, moving the arms and the legs, bringing your knees to your chest. Rolling to your side, coming up to sit. Thank you for your energy, for practicing yoga, and especially for all of your efforts. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.